Okay, so now we're targeting phase two, 1.5 to 2.5 million. Here's the thing. You can grow into phase two from phase one in a year. You can also do it in 6 months. Let me explain. It's all dependent on how aggressive you are and how comfortable you are with risk. But let's break down the team and understand who to hire when. So now, as the general manager, to grow to phase two as early as possible. When we put after we've put our first cohort into build, and we've built our first cohort, this is the trigger. So remember, in phase one, we put a cohort, which is 2 to 3 projects. That's 400 to 600K into build. All right. Then we project manage those jobs to completion. That's going to take 3 to 4 months. Okay. The design process itself is going to take 3 to 4 months. Okay. So right around month 7, which is when your second cohort of 400 to 600 grand goes into build, that is the earliest opportunity we can hire a project manager. And we are going to hire that project manager when the second cohort that you're building for the year leaves budget check-in and signs the contract. So the moment that cohort from design signs contracts, before we go to pre-con meeting, that is when we hire our very first project manager. Now, ideally, we promote him from punch list and go hire another punch list guy. But the point is, guys, I don't want you hiring for potential. I want you hiring for track record. You do not have the time or the resources to invest in somebody to achieve their potential yet. Okay, you won't until you're above 8 figures. As a small business owner, we have to understand that the talent that they're coming in with is the talent we're working with. Sure, they'll get better over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. But the thing is, unless you have 3 years of cash sitting in the bank, then you can't take a risk on somebody's potential. They have to have the skills you need. And they need to be better at the SOPs that you're going to assign them than you. Otherwise, what's the freaking point of hiring them? Agreed? So back to when to hire this PM. You're going to hire this PM when your second cohort signs their build contracts, right, during the design process. Okay? Sorry, I had a little hesitation there. What's the math behind that? Well, remember, a cohort's going to be 400 to 600 grand. Right. But what I need you to do, but let's back up 1 second. When your first cohort, if you want to move this quickly, when your first cohort goes to build, that's when I need you to increase your advertising from, hold on a second, from $14.40 per month, I need you to $26.40 per month. You can afford it. Why? Because we need our next cohort to be 50% bigger than our first cohort so that we can afford that project manager without digging into our pay and our profit. Right. Okay. So the thing is that next cohort that comes to build is not going to be 2 to 3 projects. It's going to be 4 to 5 projects. Okay, 4 projects, 200K, 200K average ticket, $800,000 cohort. Right, you're going to do 3 cohorts in a year on average. That's $2.4 million company. This is all math, guys. Okay, so step 1 to grow to phase 2. Step 1, after your first RC style cohort goes to build, increase your marketing to match a phase 2 company. whether that's in referrals or ad spend. But the point is, our second cohort needs to be 800 grand, and the clock's ticking. We got 4 months to build it. Does that make sense? You pull that. If you pull that off, great, we can hire the PM. If you don't hit that 800 grand mark, do not hire this PM. Stay in phase one and try again with the next cohort. Does that make sense? Success advisors, I need you to play back what I just said the last 75 seconds. This is so critical. If you miss your $800,000 milestone for cohort 2, that's your trigger to hire a PM. If you hit 800 grand or bigger in your second cohort before the first cohort finishes, you can hire a PM. If you don't, do not hire this PM. It's going to fuck up your cash flow. Stay at phase one. Try again with the next cohort. Right? All that means is we need to spend more in marketing or go get more relationships to make this happen. Make sense? Okay. So then what we'll do when we hit cohort number 3 at 800K, that's when we're going to hire the second punch list guy. And ideally, that second punch list guy needs to have the trade skills that we're short in supply on, that do not have a license, right? So your first punch list guy needs to be a carpenter. Your second punch list guy needs to be tile, right? So generally speaking, some guys drywall, other guys paint, some guys are carpenters, other guys are tile guys. The point is, between your two punch list guys, you need to be good enough. You need to be an expert at trim carpentry, touching up drywall, touching up paint, and installing tile. Because if things are slow, or your sub bids are just whack, or your subs are crazy slow, well, we always have the option to self-perform, don't we? So that builds redundancy into your business. But we can't hire the second punch list guy until cohort 3. I mean, sure, you can take if you need to, it's going to hurt profitability. We can hire him at your second cohort, but I encourage you to at your phase 2, a phase 1 cohort is 400 grand. A phase 2 cohort is 800 grand. So with your first 800 grand cohort, we can afford a PM. With your second 800 grand cohort, we can afford your second punch list guy. You already have your admin VA. You already have your trades. You got your virtual estimator, and you've already recruited your design team. So what you are doing as the owner is you're managing design, you're meeting with realtors and designers, to get referrals. You're recruiting, you're conducting sales, you're approving estimates, you're writing contracts, and you're managing your direct reports, the PM, the admin VA, the virtual estimator, the design team. The PM is managing your punch list dudes who are running your punch list, your warranty, they're your material runners, and they self-perform when things are slow. Your project manager is also responsible for your pre-con. They are responsible for your project management. They're responsible for recruiting the subs. You're responsible for recruiting everything else. And they're reviewing the estimate from the staff estimator. So by the time it comes to you, he's already looked at this and made sure that there's enough labor hours and that the labor costs are accurate, so that you are then only working with the finish and fixture material allowances. So now the time you're spending putting bids together, before the virtual estimator was 15 hours a project. After the virtual estimator, it was 2 to 4 hours. Once you've got the PM, 1 to 2, right? So that just expands your ability to sell, to sell more, to meet more people, because you're spending less time doing bullshit that absolutely has to happen, but isn't exactly getting you more opportunity, because your biggest bottleneck right now, your biggest bottleneck to get out of phase one was just simply being able to estimate more. We solved that. Your bottleneck in phase two is going to be lead flow. Once you solve lead flow, it goes back to being an estimate problem, which we solve by putting part of our estimate review responsibilities onto the project manager. So again, the project manager is responsible for pre-con, PMSOP, recruiting subs, managing the punch list, and reviewing the labor and installation material portions of the estimate. You're still responsible for the fixture and finishes. Okay? Awesome. So now let's talk about the math behind a phase two company. Phase two, you need 13 projects. Okay? That comes out to 65 proposals, comes out to a year, 33 leads, which to do that, you need 33 leads a month. Okay? At worst case scenario, you're looking at spending $26.40 a month through your calculators, or going out and getting 33 realtor and designer relationships. Okay? So now let's talk about the math behind it. That's the marketing problem. Let's talk about the numbers of this business. Okay? As an RC style $2.5 million design build business, at a 37% gross profit, you're looking at about $925,000. Okay? The only thing that changed was we added another punch list guy. All right? Our virtual estimator is being used more. Okay? And we hired a project manager. I use a $65,000 base. I give them 2% of contracts that are delivered above a 37% gross profit. So that comes out to about $50,000 in bonuses, and in taxes. Sorry, I always estimate about 30% for taxes, employment taxes. So you're looking at $149,000 for that project manager, right? Your insurance is going to go up a little bit. We're going to add another vehicle. Remodel commander stays flat. Everything else stays flat. Okay? So what does that look like profit-wise? Well, phase two, our overhead grew. Right? Our overhead is at the fattest it's ever going to be at this phase. It went from 15% to 19.8%. Okay? And we're not going to take as much profit. We're going to hold it steady at $150,000 because we've entered into Death Valley. We just now, the moment you hired that project manager, you're in Death Valley, because you are not generating enough profit to take a full 10% out and pay yourself a living wage. Does that make sense? Okay? So we're going to hold our profit steady at $150,000. We're going to take the balance as salary, or whatever your tax advisor tells you to do. The point is, your tax bill is going to be about 7% of revenue. So your take home is going to be about $104,000. Okay? So the old lady's, all she's going to see, or your spouse, your partner, your domestic partner, your kids, they're going to see that you went into Death Valley, you're paying yourself a little bit more, but you should be nervous because you didn't get your full 10% profit put back into the company to grow. But that's okay, because I have a ninja trick to get out of Death Valley on the backside. So this is so phase two is really Death Valley step one. Okay? So getting back to this, when do you hire that project manager? You hire that project manager when you build your first phase two cohort, which is $800,000. That's double of what your phase one cohort is, which is $400,000. Okay? And that's 2 projects back at phase one. That's 4 projects in phase two. How do you do that? Well, what I would do is I would put my first phase one cohort into build, And the moment it starts demo and I collect that demo check, that's when I'm going to increase my marketing to a phase 2 level. Does that make sense? And so then what'll happen is 4 months later, I am statistically assured of having that phase 2 cohort ready to go to build just in time when my phase 1 cohort finishes build. Make sense? So, and so then you're going to add your second punch list guy with your second phase 2 cohort, your third RC style cohort altogether. So what I'm trying to get at is around your 1 year anniversary, if you're starting from scratch, you've had a PM working for you for about 4 to 5 months, and you just hired your second punch list guy. I like to use this punch list position as an apprentice PM to train these guys to grow into being a project manager. Okay? Career progression. So anyway, in the next video, we're going to go over Death Valley Step 2, otherwise known as Phase 3, 2.5 to 4 million. All right, guys, be good.